In America, there is a misconception about who is on welfare. Now, let me just say this. There is no one program in the United States that constitutes welfare. There are many social programs in the United States that are part of what the United States calls the social safety net, which is really not much of a safety net at all when you consider the meager benefits that people receive. So, what I've decided to do is look quickly at the statistics from the last census. Now, this holds true going back, but actually in the last 20 years, it has increased. The number of people receiving public benefits of some sort or another has increased amongst one particular demographic, and that is amongst white people.
Government assistance was made for white people. The fact that the programs are made in like 1935, like in the 1930s, says it all right there, given the fact that black people were not even considered people under the law at that time. But I've really been doing some more research and reading, and I read an article and they were talking about how like up until like the 60s or 70s, black people really could not qualify for government assistance. And that is absolutely disheartening, being that now it hasn't even been 100 years later that black people are now the face of all racial stereotypes regarding government assistance in Section 8. Meanwhile, these same programs were never even made for us. Meanwhile, black people had to jump through hoops to get qualified. Meanwhile, people talk about black fathers not being in the home, and these same government institutions were not wanting the men to be there. Like, what the fuck?
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren. And I'm Maureen. So how is it that white Americans are the highest beneficiaries of welfare benefits? And this information is well out there for everybody to see, but yet somehow the whole world, including us here in Africa, have been made to believe that Americans, black Americans, are the epitome of, or are the face of what welfare benefits represent. Right. As you ponder upon that statement, guys, I would also like to make another statement of my own. This season, I feel like this season of America drama, whatever you want to call it, President Trump has kind of been the expose that really showcases what white people are, or should we say he's the karma that was sent to expose them. I don't know however you want to look at it, right? Because when his own people brought him to power, they brought him to power with an illusion that he would make America great again. But what ended up happening for both parties is they badly exposed themselves. Right, but guys, what are we talking about? Let's watch what we prepared for you today, and then we come back and talk about it. Meanwhile, you can let us know your thoughts and opinion on the comment section. Also, consider subscribing if it's your first time here. Let's watch, and then we come back with our commentaries.
20 years ago, 61% of all the people receiving public benefits of some kind in the United States were white people. Today, or as of 2022, or as the last census, 76.2% of all the people receiving some form of public benefit were white people. And the rest were people of color, 13%, people of Asian extraction, 6%, give or take, and people of Hispanic, somewhere down in the middle there. So let's just talk about what constitutes public benefits. So I'm going to read this list here, and this is what makes up all of welfare, if you will, in the United States. Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, free or reduced price school meals, SSI, TAANF, energy aid, rental subsidies, unemployment compensation, and assorted other programs. So 40 million people in the United States live in poverty, and that number approximately is the number of people who receive public benefits of some kind. And of course, that varies when you include Social Security recipients, Medicare, et cetera, which is not it's an earned benefit. So I'm going to eliminate that for the moment. So of those people, the number of people receiving public benefits, welfare, if you will, some form of social program, social safety net support, as I said, 76.2% are whites. So I think this is important to remember when people start talking out of their ass.
How many people have noticed that just about every democratic policy that white conservatives despise, they benefit most from? For example, white conservatives claim they despise federal government overreach. Well, 8 of the top 10 states that take federal tax dollars are conservative states. They'll tell you welfare is socialism and we need to end welfare. Well, white people have benefited more from welfare than any other demographic while excluding black Americans. They'll tell you gun laws don't work because they don't keep us safe. Well, 16 of the top 17 states in gun death rates are conservative states who have almost no firearm legislation. They'll tell you government does not help when making healthcare affordable. Well, while 13 of the top 14 states in death rates by diabetes are conservative states, 193 Republicans voted against lowering the cost of insulin. They'll tell you they despise affirmative action. Well, affirmative action has benefited white women more than any other demographic. Studies show white conservatives don't hate these benefits, they just don't want black people to have access to them. Because when you've had privilege your whole life, equality feels like oppression.
Finally, you get to see the true America. The stipulation has always been that black people are lazy, that black people are on welfare. Well, guess what? A lot of poor white people in the red states are now crying that they're not getting the EBT money from the EBT cards. Why? Because they are on welfare. They have 7 and 8 kids. Now the truth is coming out since Trump has slashed funding for the EBT and the SNAP programs. You see how many white people now are on welfare. So all this mythical stuff about black people being on welfare, oh, it's the blacks, it's the blacks, it's the blacks. Now you're seeing the real America, that it's not only black people on welfare, that there are a lot of white people on welfare also. There are a lot of white people, a lot of poor people living in those red states, and those red states that voted for Trump are now getting hit hard.
Hi, this is Attorney Davis responding to your comment. And as I mentioned before in the original video, yes, statistically speaking, white people are the biggest beneficiary of welfare programs. And I just want to drop some knowledge on you. Not on you specifically, but on the original comment, the person that posted it. All right, so a little bit about me is that prior to becoming an attorney, my trade actually is economics. I'm an economist by trade and education-wise. In fact, I was going to work on Wall Street prior to becoming an attorney, but I wound up becoming an attorney. Now that that's out the way, let's get to the raw statistics. All right, so white people are the biggest beneficiaries of welfare. White people make up about just about a little bit over 40% of welfare, being recipients of welfare. Another 25.7% is made up by African Americans. Approximately 10.3 are Hispanic. 2.
When Trump came out with his big tax bill, the big beautiful bill, telling us exactly what was in it, what was his plan. You remember when he said he would cut SNAP benefits? I heard him say it. I know you heard him say it. But the rural states and the red states, they seem to not have gotten that memo. They are complaining that their SNAP benefits are being cut. They're going to the grocery stores and their card is being declined. We knew that was going to happen. But Trump made you think that you wouldn't be affected by it. Let me talk about the welfare system for a second. The welfare system did not become a thing until the 1930s, after the Great Depression or during the Great Depression. It was created to help white families. If you remember, in the 1930s, there was black and white segregation. There was racial injustices. Black people were not allowed to apply for welfare assistance until the 1960s. But it wasn't until the 1980s that Ronald Reagan decided to do a war on poverty, making the black woman and the black single household the queens of welfare. Fast forward to 2025, 25% of welfare recipients are black. 42% of welfare recipients in America are white. So who's the real welfare queen?
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the videos we just played you, yeah? You know, the funny thing is that how something obvious can be in front of people's faces, but because of their prejudice or because of their racism,
propaganda,
right, they will refuse to see the truth. For the longest time, as we said, Black Americans were quite the face of literally welfare recipients. Yeah, it was said that Black Americans were lazy, couldn't even get up to go work for themselves, always waiting for the government to assist them. At least that is what we were being shown in movies here in Africa. And back then, you have to understand that the world was not a small village like it is right now. Back then, we only got the perception of
what the media sold us, you know.
Exactly.
And especially here in Africa, let me talk for Kenya because I'm here in Kenya. And I think we grew up in a middle income family, so I can say we didn't get our first smartphone up until we finished high school, and that was around 20...
It wasn't that long ago, 2015.
Actually, that wasn't even a smartphone. It was just a fake...
Blueberry. Were they called Blueberry? But in Africa, you really get the China
type of phone that can't even load up Facebook well. So that's the kind of phone we started with in 2016. And I can say our first decent smartphone was when we were in campus around 2017, 2018. So you can really see how behind we were when it came to internet and technology.
Yeah,
both of us, to be precise, right?
And that's when we say we had our first smartphone at university back in 2017, around that time. Literally, a lot of people our age, maybe
most of them
didn't,
for the most part, not the like ultra rich people of Kenya, just normal citizens of Kenya.
A lot of them didn't have this kind of phones. The only one maybe they could try and get were the button phone, you know, those types of phone. So you can imagine the kind of perception you've been fed up to, let's say, 2017. We weren't even in 2020 or 2019. That was just like a few light years back, you know.
Right. And you know, the type of propaganda we saw and the type of what we consumed from the media was pretty much straightforward because we didn't have any other sources of verification.
Right. And from the episode we did yesterday, we now know that there's certain algorithm system that has been made such that they feed this type of information to one certain group of people, this a different type of information to a different type of group of people. And it's not far-fetched to think that even to some extent, white people also have been fed an algorithm of their own. That is why, even though their own racist percentage of people were indirect benefiting from welfare, they still were thinking that Black Americans were the biggest recipients, you know.
Or sometimes I usually do feel like, but it would be really good for a white person to clarify this, right? I really do feel like maybe when white America was receiving the same welfare benefits as Black people, maybe they didn't see it as particularly, or maybe they thought Black Americans had their own separate welfare benefits. I really don't know. I'm trying to understand their psyche.
You remember that thing when they said how if anything happens, the racist white people blame it on the Black community. If there are no jobs, it's the Black people taking our jobs. If the healthcare is crashing, it's the Black people overwhelming the system. You know, it's always a Black person
doing something to the white Americans.
And that is why when Trump was campaigning, you know, when he wanted to come into office, he knew exactly where to press in order for them to get him into that office. You know, he just knew if he came into, you know, their podium and talked to them about, when I become president, this is what I'm going to do for you. And that is why they voted against Obamacare, you know, because they felt like it was going to only benefit the Black community. And for them, if your life becomes a little bit difficult, provided mine becomes that much easier, then I see no problem with it. And right now, it's biting them in the you know where, you know.
Right. And you know, the saddest part about this whole scenario is this is a situation whereby this welfare was helping both races, right? Some more than others, the white people, right? More than others. But what's sad about this situation is, while a huge number of white people were benefiting from the welfare benefits, they on the other hand, looked at black people and tried to shame them into using the same exact benefits that they themselves were using. So they plastered the names of black Americans and their faces in a bad light for using literally the same resources with the welfare benefits they used. And sometimes even black Americans don't get as far with the benefits as compared to white Americans, because you know who gets favored when two people, a black person and a white person, enter a room to ask for something.
Right, and that is why they say racism is very, very expensive. And I feel like this is the decade or the era where a lot of majority of white people are finding this out, because right now whatever is happening in America is not only affecting the black community. Right now it's cutting across all races, and literally it's a war between this versus that one. It's not about black versus white. Right now it's about the 1% versus the many who cannot afford. And if they want a system to go a particular way, and right now I feel like President Trump, to be quite honest, I don't know, this situation, people are meant to learn from it. You know, there's a lot of lessons.
That is the biggest question. Will most people learn from this situation?
There's a great lesson that is meant to be learned from this, because like genuinely, even when you look at the farmers in America, the white farmers, when they were voting in Trump, if you could have told them before the votes that this is how you're gonna be ending up,
if
and Trump,
a flash of their future would run through their minds, would it still change their votes?
I don't think so. They were
There's a reason why Americans, black Americans especially, keep insisting that racism is expensive. Even if you flash the future of all these people in front of them, does it still change their, you know, sometimes it's very funny because human beings usually want to learn through experience. So most of them, before they decide a certain decision, they'll say, if it will damn black community, heck, I will do it. You know, even if it will hurt me, it will hurt them more. Only for them to realize after they've done that certain action that
it's costing them more.
Yeah, that seesaw is cutting across, or that knife is cutting both sides.
Yeah, which I can't help but ask myself, like, I don't feel, let me ask myself and then I respond to my question.
Okay.
Given a chance to redo everything with the information people have right now in America, are all of them going to be, like, if they were asked to vote again, would they vote the same way they did? Personally, I feel like they would, just simply because I feel like human pattern is hard to leave, you know, and this pattern becomes behavior, and it's the little things that contribute to the person you are and the kind of decision you make and the way you make them, you know.
And so, I also do feel like, although most of them would not change their decision, a few of them might have come to the other side solely because...
Do you think so, guys?
Listen, not because they agree with the other side, but solely because their interests are being hurt. So in the effort to try and fight for or fix their interest, that is the only reason they would shift to the other side. You get what I'm saying? Just
but
a few percentage of them.
Right, but it's quite interesting, guys, to see what is unraveling in America. And as I said, I feel like President Trump was put there to expose whatever has been happening, because to the rest of the world, we all know that Black Americans were the biggest recipients. You know, okay, let me just give you just a little perspective, for people who are outside America, right? From where I'm sitting, and this is because I've had a lot of people in our country talk about this, even our friends, even ourselves, we thought this at some point before we educated ourselves. People think literally when you're outside America, let's say here in Africa, people really genuinely think that Black Americans have it good, like you have welfare, you know, your government is taking care of you.
And
like
how the welfare idea is sold here in Africa, it is sold like it is something good that Black Americans don't need to work, don't even need to. No. Yes, that too, but they don't need to complain as long as they're getting welfare. First of all, they'll be labeled as, in the first place, they're getting this welfare because they're lazy. So the American government and the white people people are taking good care of them. So here in Africa, that is the real image that most
People
Africans used to or still have of what welfare represents.
Right, and even the name welfare, you know. But right now, knowing what we know, and for those ones who have chosen to educate themselves,
I
it's
just
quite a
knew
surprise.
last year that even white people, you know, here in Africa, when you mention a white person
white people
the idea of
poor.
a white person, white people cannot be poor in an African person's book. You know, because even welfare, I came to learn towards the end of last year, that is, that welfare is something that even white Americans do get.
I remember our first reaction ever, our first reaction video on this channel about American issues was a white man actually, and that
exposing
was that, exposing that system, and he was a living example of welfare because he said he was coming from a very disadvantaged background, and the father was
sometimes even exchanging the cards for food stamps, food stamps, exchanging them and going to get, you know,
the powders
and
just the illicit stuff we can't mention here.
Right.
The father used to deal in that, and as he did that, he would talk about and complain about how black people are too lazy.
These black people are too lazy. They are usually on welfare. And the funny thing is that he is also on welfare, and they are pushing, you know what, the white powders in the community. And he was a dealer of the white powder in the community. So
right, and that guy, the white man, was the one who was talking about this himself, and that was literally the first time
eye opener we had.
Yeah, the first time our eyes started getting open, because
especially when it comes to this matter with welfare, we're like, how can
a white man be poor?
And
plus,
moreover, how could they be getting welfare? Haven't we been told that black Americans...
It's just for black Americans.
So as we thought it was exclusively, not even for POCs of America or white people of America, but only exclusively to black Americans.
But as I said, they expose themselves and the whole world.
Right.
Not everybody knows about it, but at least a lot more people
are finding out and are aware, but are most importantly finding out about it. But what worries me in this day and age and in this point is if you watched the video we did yesterday, how especially the first world countries, they want to have independence, digital independence, meaning whatever they feed people in Europe, let's say UK, it's not the same content they will feed people in Africa. So to some degree, we are still also going to go back to them controlling the narrative of what they want people to have an idea of a certain group of or certain people, you know.
And just when I was thinking we were getting to the best part where Africa gets to showcase the real side. Africa is not the white man or the Western side that the West wants people to know about, and black Americans are finally getting to get their opinion,
their
voices heard too from different people. Like Caribbeans are now hearing from black Americans like in masses. Africans are hearing about how black American feels about certain issues. You know, they're gonna take that away if they manage to achieve, you know, dividing the kind of information,
digital currency and digital information
that they're gonna be sending out to different and specific parts. But for now, I feel like it's worth it. The short-lived time that we had for, you know, freedom of speech and expression on social media has really brought about a lot of information getting out there, you know, and at least I can be grateful for that, you know. Like, I don't know, at this point, we're just living by God's grace and also according to the will of the oligarchs and the 1%, because it is what it is, you know.
But if God intervenes, we will not live according to the will of the oligarchs. But anyway, it's wishful thinking here and there.
Can you imagine the kind of okay, I don't know what to call it, but there's somebody somewhere who's just watching the world like this,
runs like a headless chicken,
right? They said they want to put lockdown in place, and they're just somewhere watching like how people are behaving, you know. Good, this is how people respond.
That is literally how they get entertained. As we get entertained by watching TV, but then they get entertained by watching us destroy each other. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode. Also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel, and we'll see you on our next episode.